Hey kids, welcome to lesson 13, Introduction to Arrays, number 2, Adding Items to an Array. In our last exercise, we created our array and initialized it with some values. Another way to do this is to add items to your array on separate lines. The simplest way to do this is to add a new item to the end of your array using the append item command. To append means to add or to join. You've probably seen this word appendix, not in your body, but in your literature class, like an appendix or a biography at the end of your paper. When you append an item to an array, you actually add a new location to the end of the array that contains the new value, so that the total size of the array grows by 1. Since you can always add items to an array after creating it, it is very common to create an empty array and then to add values in subsequent portions of your program. We have a do this, read the documentation for append item, create an empty array called odd numbers, use append item to add odd numbers 1 through 11 to your array. We have an example here, very similar to a variable, and it's not a variable, this is an array, and it's called odd number. And it's set to nothing right now, it's blank. And then it looks like we have an append item odd number 1, append item odd number 3. This is adding to that empty bracket right there. We finally have a console.log to confirm your array is holding the correct values. The output should look like the example below. And it has 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. Ooh, this is pretty interesting. Looks like we got a couple things to do. Let's look at the documentation for append item. How do we do that? Well, we simply come down here, go to our C example, and this brings up the information here. Really what this is doing is adding to our empty string we have. So the example here is my favorite movies, and they're just adding Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. Fun fact, I've actually never seen Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. I know I get joked about this quite a bit. We also have an example here. It's called the Fibonacci sequence. What is the Fibonacci sequence? This right here is a little fun math sequence. And basically, it is found by adding up the two numbers before it. So 0 and 1 would add up to 1. 1 plus 1 is going to be 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. Neat little math proof right there. This example here would generate the first 10 numbers in that sequence. I recommend really reading through this, but for now, let's get back to our lesson. What do we have to do? Well, we're creating this array, odd number, and we're going to add items to it. And then we're going to output that to our debug console using a console.log statement. Well, much like variables, our arrays have a var in front of it, and we are going to make ours, just like theirs, odd numbers. And right now, what we're going to do is we're going to leave it empty. It's just blank. So we can add things to it and then call those things as we'd like to. In our example, our favorite movies, we could call Star Wars, Harry Potter, or Lord of the Rings. I highly suggest you add your own favorite movies. Next, we want to append or add. So I'm going to append item. And which database or variable am I going to do? Well, it's going to be odd numbers. And I want that to be 1, my first number. What does all that mean right there? Well, let's look over here at my append numbers. The first thing it asks for is the list. And our list in our variable is odd numbers. The second thing is the item we're putting into it. So when I drag this in, let's make another line here first. When I drag this in, I'm going to change the list to odd numbers. And then what number do I want? Another odd number. I already have 1, then I have 3. Looks like I have an error here. It says odd bumbers. While funny, it should say odd numbers. We are going to rinse and repeat. So append item, odd numbers, 3, 5. Couple more to go. We have 7. Odd numbers, 9, and just one more, 11 for our last one. What I'm doing here is just adding to this empty bucket here so I can call to it. Well, where do I want to call? I want to call my debug console. So I'm going to do a console.log statement in just my odd numbers array. How it's set now, when I hit run down here in the debug console, I should get 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. Let's hit run and see if that's true. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. Looks like my code is working like they want it to. Looking back up here, we read the documentation. We created an empty array here called odd numbers. We use the append item to add numbers 1 through 11 to it. And then we use our console.log statement to call that odd numbers to display it down here. I think that's all code.org wanted from us. Let's see if they want anything else. Nope. Good job, kids. I'll see you on the next lesson.